as ever, if that's okay with people, we'll start with a prayer, if that's okay with everyone else. And so if you're ready, if we'd just like to close our eyes, take a breath, be glad that we're all able to be here. Almighty and most merciful God, before our first parents, Adam and Eve, sinned, they lived and they were happy in the Garden of Eden. And as we read in the Bible, you walked with them in the afternoon air, and they heard the sound of you in the garden. Later, your own Son, Jesus Christ, began his fearful passion with a sweat of blood in the Garden of Gethsemane, and ever since then, a garden has been a really holy thing. You still walk there with us in the afternoon air. You walk with people who can see you and your generous and merciful providence, working for us in the green things and the fruit of the trees and the trees that blossom and the corn that grows and everything that you give us that gives such rich and nourishing and abundance. People who can see again the cross of Christ in every tree and his crown of thorns in every thorn. Bless us this evening on all our gardens and orchards and mines in this broad land of ours, dear God. Give us rich and plentiful harvest. And help us as we listen to Michael tonight to see you in our loving kindness, in your loving kindness, working for us and with us. Help us to do your will, to hear your will, that someday we'll walk with you and your Son in the path of another garden, far better, far more beautiful than the gardens that we see today. Amen. And from that, I'll introduce Michael, who is our speaker this evening. I'm so delighted that he's here with us. Joyous enough. So, as most of you know, many of you know, I'm our food project administrator. But the Joy in Enough project is about a more godly engagement with systemic economy. And in some ways, the fact that being part of this economy, we're part of systemic sin. Sorry, Michael, these are my words, not yours. What I want to say is that Michael will show us that there is a huge abundance in what God and nature and the trees and plants around us want to give us, and we let it slide. We let it slip away. Let's not. So I'm going to shut up now and hand over to Michael, who will tell you a little about his past and what he does now and what we might be able to learn from him in the future. Michael, all yours.
Thank you, Kat. I'm going to share my screen and a PowerPoint now. I don't normally do PowerPoints, but today I'm going to do that. Okay, well, as you know, this is about starting a fruit harvesting group. So it's aimed at people who might want to start a fruit harvesting group or interested in doing that. Other people are welcome. But if it's different from what you expected, you also can gracefully leave us if it's quite different. So what we're going to cover is a little bit about me, reasons for starting a fruit harvesting group, some of the benefits, some of the good things, but also some of the challenges, and the support that I offer to people who are going to want to start a fruit harvesting group. So I reckon it'll be about 30, 45 minutes, and then we'll have time for question and answer. And also include something about a project I'm doing this summer that's focused on London and my role in that, but it can encompass the rest of the country as well. So a bit about me. Well, relevant to fruit harvesting, I started Kensal to Kilburn Fruit Harvesters, a group in 2009. Kensington Kilburn is where I live in northwest London, fairly central. I can cycle to Marble Arch in about 15 minutes. And I've also helped groups to start nearby. Some of these groups, Neasden, Maidstone, Willesden, they're adjoining Kilburn, and also one in Camden, which is also not far away. So I've kind of got experience, and I've seen other groups in London and nationally and talked to other people running groups. And my background, this is all as a volunteer, the fruit harvesting, but my background, I do community work. I mainly start community projects, whether that's a community centre or a project about loneliness, or it's one with refugee women, setting up a catering enterprise, a community market, different things. I've mentioned I'm doing a project in London to inspire other people to start a new fruit harvesting group. And that's where, when I got in touch with yourselves and you picked up on it, and that's how I come to be here. Going back a long way, back to the 1980s, I was a trainee solicitor, and it's the best thing I've ever done is escaping law and becoming a baker and a pastry chef, and then doing the kind of things I do now. And to really pigeonhole me and do a cliche, I'm a cycling, vegetarian, foraging, Guardian reader. So that's a bit about me. So the main reasons I think for starting a fruit harvesting group are reducing waste, which is why I did it. I really don't like waste. And if I walk around my block, 10-minute walk around my block, there's 9 fruit trees that drop fruit on the pavement. So I was getting quite a few reminders of it. So reducing waste is the big one. And when I talk to people in groups, maybe at the beginning of a harvesting session, I ask people, why are you involved? That's the most common reason. The other 2 main reasons are the community aspect, connect with people and local groups in distributing the fruit. And then the one that I hadn't thought of when I started, but it's become much more prominent, is this connecting with food. And yeah, it does surprise me. It's not all the time, it's not most of the time, but it's happened enough times where we're harvesting fruit in a garden and the garden owner has never tasted that apple or that pear, and they don't feel confident to do it. They don't feel safe to do it. We can be taking apples out of their garden one way, and they're bringing in apples from the supermarket through their front door. And I think it's quite scary that in a few generations, or really in my lifetime, we've come to rely on supermarkets so much that we no longer trust our own instincts. That, I mean, it's got us this far through millions and millions of years to know where to get food from. So I think the easiest way to show you what fruit harvesting is about is to show you this 4-minute film, which is about the Kensington Kilburn Fruit Harvesting Group. And stop. Project that harvests fruit between Kilburn and Kensal in northwest London, and we've harvested 1¼ tons of fruit this year just from people's back gardens, fruit that would otherwise have fallen to the ground and rotted.
Okay, this could be a big one. I hate waste, and every time I go past a bit of food that I see growing, I want to pick it. Oh, that's my glasses off. Most of the fruit we give away to local schools and they put it into crumbles, but we also give it to quite a few local charities, including Brent Centre for Adults with Learning Disabilities, and we've started picking with them as well. Right. A few more handfuls. It's been a good way for me to meet some of my neighbours, both people with gardens who are offering us their trees, but also the pickers, especially when I'm picking in a garden that's just down the road from me, just around the corner from me. I really like the fact when it's so local.
I'm sick and tired of like microwave meals being cheaper than fresh fruit and vegetables in the supermarket. And if this is what nature gives you in abundance, it's autumn, why are we not, picking the fruits of nature's labour, if you like?
It's really heavy. It's heavier than it looks.
It's like a battlefield. See flesh going everywhere.
Very beautiful. This is another reason why this project's exciting, because people that don't have gardens or don't have the right to grow in their own gardens can gain access to food growing and to food picking and ultimately to food.
10 or 11. One of the things that we do is make apple juice with the fruit that we've harvested. We've got a big press, a 20-litre press, and we can make up to 500 glasses of juice in one day.
What do you do with yours?
And the great thing about it is that selling 500 glasses, you meet about 500 people and you can tell them about the project. We're quite evangelical about this.
We've had such a variety of people just passing by, and almost everyone, it seems, stops and has a look and tries to work out what's going on, and then is, if they taste it, then they seem to love it.
I think this is the future. Like I just told him, he said it was the past. I said, well, to get to the future, you have to go to the past.
Tastes like apple.
So I say what we're doing today is very similar to what we were doing then. Probably a couple of differences. One is more food goes to food banks than to schools these days because of the rise, unfortunately, of food banks, or fortunately or unfortunately. And the other thing is we don't really climb trees anymore. We try not to do that, just to keep a bit safer. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share again. Okay. So that's where you can find the film on YouTube. You can also, if you go on YouTube and look for Shaking the Tree, Jonathan Goldberg, you will get that film. Okay. So I'm going to go through briefly an overview of how it actually works in practice on a day-to-day level. This is, once your group is up and running, this is what would happen. So a tree owner tells you, my fruit is ready. My apple tree, my pear tree, my plum tree is ready. Somebody in the middle, the group leader, puts a call out to, you've got some core volunteers, some key volunteers who lead picks. You might have 5 of those people who are confident enough to lead a small group to do a pick. They'll ask for one of those to be the lead person on this particular tree. That pick leader will then visit the tree, just a very quick 5-minute visit to check, is the fruit ripe? How much fruit is there? And arrange a time to pick it. So once the coordinator has that information, they'll then message the wider volunteer team, the pickers, and probably look for 5 people to harvest. You've got a tarpaulin, so you've got 4 people holding the corners of the tarpaulin, and you've got 1 person shaking the tree, and we take it in turns so everybody gets a go, and the men don't hog the shaking. It's very seasonal, so we're really talking mid-August to mid-September, maybe 6 weeks. That's in London. If you're in the Isle of Man, I guess it's going to be a couple of weeks after that. etc. But it's a short season. Most of the year, fruit harvesting groups are pretty well hibernating. Might be doing a few bits, planning, but it's pretty well seasonal. Well, it's very seasonal. So what's good about a group? What are the plus points about a group? One, I think, is for me, it's a very practical action. You've got concrete results. You can see what you're achieving. And I mean, this year, the Kensal to Kilburn harvesting group, we had a record year by a long way, but we got 3 tons of fruit this year. It was an amazing season, 2025. The volunteering is very flexible. Somebody can just volunteer for 1 hour in the year. There's no ongoing commitment. The fact that the fruit is going to food banks, so we're getting a couple of tons of fruit to food banks, that is motivating for volunteers. The social element is good, and particularly that you're meeting people who, on the whole, will share similar values and interests. So that's kind of validating. The local aspect, most fruit harvesting groups are pretty local. I mean, we're in a built-up area, so obviously in a rural area, it would be bigger. But ours is just 2 miles across, so you can, most people can walk to the pick, and you get to know streets and corners that you wouldn't otherwise go down. The diversity for environmental groups, environmental projects are not are known for being the most ethnically diverse. In particular, can struggle in that area. But I think you saw from our film that I'm quite surprised how we reach all different ethnicities. I think a big plus is that you don't have to keep applying for funding. By selling juice or jam or pies, you can be self-sufficient without having that sort of roller coaster. And there are other things that it can lead to where you've got all this fruits, so you can do things around food, cooking. We had a school that did an enterprise project that made a product, marketed it. We lend the fruit picking tools in our local libraries lend tools so people can harvest their own fruits, cider, all sorts of other things. So those are the good things, I think. A couple of decisions. I've mentioned the geographic area, but also you can just do a very small fruit harvesting, just go out 3 or 4 times, do 3 or 4 trees and get 200 kilos. Or like us, over time, you can build up and reach 3 tons. So what happens to the fruit? There are lots of different ways of doing this. So each group is different, but this is how we do it. We say to the tree owner and the volunteers who are on that pick, keep what they want. Generally, that's not very much. That might amount to about 10 kilos in all. As you know, then food banks or other local community projects get most of it, but you can leave it on the pavement. Somebody's already mentioned doing that. You can juice it, jam or chutney. And we've got a lovely local restaurant that free of charge makes jam for us. And this year we had about 100 jars of plum jam that we could sell to raise money. Here's a couple of appreciations. The first one I actually got this week. So joining fruit harvesting group was life-changing. I have more appreciation of what's around, nature and other things, and I tell everyone. So that was a lovely message. And then this one came last year on WhatsApp. Thank you, Michael and Janie, for all your amazing hard work. We so love being part of this lovely, quirky, hardworking, good-hearted family. I did like that, quirky in particular. I enjoyed that. So I'm going to kind of skim this a bit, do this quickly, because a lot of this applies to any group, not just fruit harvesting. But just to mention, money, you could get away with no money. It's possible to make your own equipment. A stick with a hook on the end is enough, or a pole with a hook on the end that you could make. But I'd say £200 to £300 is certainly enough to cover everything. And if you don't have insurance, it's 200. Obviously, you need publicity to find volunteers, to recruit trees, And to reach out to food banks, word of mouth is still the best way to do that. You need somebody in the middle or two people in the middle. I've kind of split it into two, but it could be one person or it could be 5 people. Somebody day to day who does that organising of the picks, whether that's by email or by WhatsApp, or we have a platform that we've just found out about that does a lot of this, saves a lot of the communicating, which is fairly time consuming, about half an hour per pick, maybe more, in organising for those 5 volunteers to pick with the pick leader, with the tree owner. So there's, yeah, you need somebody to do that day-to-day detailed work. And then ideally somebody proactive who can prompt things, share work out, lead the group, appreciate people, make sure the communication's happening, and be outward looking as well to reach out to the community. It might be 2 different personalities there. Then aspects of starting a group. You will want to train some people to lead a pick. It's not rocket science. We are taking this pole, telescopic pole with a hook, hooking it on a branch, shaking it with people underneath, catching it, and then moving on to the next branch. It isn't rocket science, but there are things that we've learned over the years, and there are better ways to do it and less good ways of doing it. So we always have a regular pick, a regular harvest, but where there's a lot more explanation. And that is where we encourage people who might want to lead picks themselves to come and be trained up, because that's been our bottleneck, having enough pick leaders. I think at the moment we've got 14 pick leaders, and yeah, they're really how we were able to do 65 picks last year. The communications is obviously very important. And when you're starting a group meeting so that you get to know each other, I'm probably preaching, teaching my grandmother and my grandfather to suck eggs at this point. But I know when I started the group, I thought, let's just do it. Let's have the concrete action. Let's not be talking. I kind of quickly realized that if I did that, I would be doing everything. Nobody would be stepping forward and helping this group to happen. And then you've got things like, well, at some point, maybe not in the first year, but at some point you might need a bank account, and then you need a constitution and some of these formalities. Transporting fruits, if you're in an area where people have got cars, it's really easy, a bit harder in some parts of London. And then this is how I can help with more detail. I'm writing a how-to guide to starting a group, and which will include a manual for kind of the detailed thing about organising each harvest, running each harvest, recommending equipment, with templates for the emails that go out, with a poster for a fruit harvesting group that you could edit, with how to store people's contact details, and for the tree, what you want to store about the tree and the tree owner. And as I mentioned, I'm talking to Ottawa, a group in Ottawa who produce some amazing software that would save quite a lot of time and effort. And I'm doing this through London National Park City. I'm volunteering with them to spread the word in London, and maybe next year throughout the country, and right now throughout the country. And you can also get information from the Abundance Network. This is a website that links fruit harvesting groups. It's quite out of date, but there is quite a lot of information there, and resources and guides to doing that are already up there. So if you don't want to wait 4 weeks for me to have this ready, you can look at a previous version over there. And if you're in London, and I know this can sound very London-centric, so I apologise for that, but if you're in London, then there is some in-person training, possibility of one-to-one mentoring, possibility of small funding for 3 or 4 groups to start in London, and that's the link which we'll send you out afterwards as well. So I'm going to stop sharing and throw it open to everybody here. Is anybody in London, by the way? Delia.
Oh,
okay.
a few hands going up there.
Yeah. So the guidance, in London, it's going to be more face-to-face, personal, but all the resources, all the guides will be available for everybody. So yeah, I'm going to throw it open for any comments, any questions at all, however major or minor or silly or serious.
Michael, can I ask you something about the laws and the regulations of fruit harvesting in the community? Can you just go outside in the street and if you see an apple tree in the public area, can you just pick apples there? Or it overhangs into the street? Are you eligible? Are you able to pick up apples off the floor
Okay,
or from the branches?
Yeah, so you're combining my careers now, aren't you? My legal career with my harvesting career.
Yes.
Okay, so the answer is technically, legally, no. If it's in the public place, it will be owned by the council. Even if it's overhanging the pavement, it is owned, the tree and the fruit, even the fruit overhanging in this country, not in every country, but in the UK, even the fruit overhanging is owned by the tree owner. Having said that, if I see fruit in a public place that's falling to the ground, personally, and it's a personal choice, if it's in a park, if you ask the council, you'll never get an answer. So I would personally just do it. And if anybody objects, politely stop and withdraw. That's never happened. Similarly, if it was a private tree, I would always ask them. I would say, even if it was overhanging, I would ask. And if they say no, they say no. There's so much fruit out there that it's, you can go and one where somebody says yes. So it's better to ask. I would say people can be very protective of their property and their trees.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kind of hear that, although I think in the Isle of Man where I am, if it's overhanging the public highway, it's yours. Same with fallen wood for the fire and so forth. But you're dead right. It makes sense to check the rules where you are.
I'll just add one point to that. You get trees on housing estates, so council estates. Again, I would then ask the neighbours. I'd ask a couple of people. You can't ask everybody, but I always ask and am respectful that it's their space.
Yeah, no, that's really good. It sounds to me like a wonderful way to get children and young people involved in understanding more about where their food comes from. I live in the Isle of Man. It's a tiny agricultural rural island, and we still have kids in school who think that eggs come from cows, and I'm not kidding you. It's work that we have to do.
Yeah, I think it can be good. And there's one group in Chiswick in West London. They have focused on primary schools, so they've done a lot on primary schools, and I think they've got a manual on how to do it. So that reminds me to ask them if they can share that. But also, I'm in the borough of Brent in London, and we were funded by Brent Public Health to do fruit harvesting with children's nurseries. So, that's our pool. It's a bit like the parachute game. You can have 30 under fives holding that and seeing where fruit comes from. So we've actually been paid to do this with nursery school children. And
do you know
the
about
other part
Sustain?
About
Sustain, the sustainable. It's an organisation that focuses on ethical food, but it has many, many projects underneath it, including child food poverty, including local organic food affordability, and so forth. Sorry, I'm probably teaching you how to suck eggs.
But we also, parents can bring children with them, even babies with them. We might, if we want 5 volunteers, we might add another one because the parent might not be able to do very much looking after the child, but it is open to, it's quite easy for parents to come along. Barbara, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just all the trees, most of the trees on the film were really big trees, and so presumably quite old trees too, and presumably quite a variety of varieties. I noticed you just do it for a short period of time, so I'm beginning to think that most of the trees in London must be fairly limited varieties that just come ripe and ready at that particular time, or is it just easier for you to actually go out and get them during that short period?
Well, I mean, I keep using words that are fruit pun related, but the core season is 6 weeks, but you get cherries to start with.
You do other fruit as well? Okay.
Yeah, we do. I mean, groups vary. Again, we do anything that's out of reach and where there's a reasonable quantity, and where our method of shaking fruit into a tarpaulin is the game changer. But there's cherries, there's cherry plums, there's plums, there's quince, there's figs, there's grapes, there's medlars, there's low-caps. So there is other fruit around, particularly probably London is a heat island. So, you know, there's bananas growing in London these days. There is other fruit, but, you know, 90% is apples, pears and plums. But it's lovely. It's lovely when we get variety and we get something unusual. That's something special. Yeah. So the season does extend. You know, it does probably go from June to November, but those are very small tail ends and beginnings compared to the relentless every day, every other day that we have from mid-July to mid-August when we're flat out. Yeah.
And those tall trees where it's very difficult to reach those apples would be the ones that would be left because, you know, nobody's going to be able to get up there and pick them unless they've got your sort of equipment.
Because the pole goes up 4 meters and then the human can hold it 2 meters. So we can get 6 meters up, which is not enough for all trees. I mean, sometimes we do have to leave fruit, but you can get quite a lot out of that.
Yeah. My husband loved growing fruit trees, but they're all on dwarfing rootstock. I don't have that problem.
Yeah, that's much more sensible. And these days, much more, these days, you know, a lot of fruit, the commercial fruit is all like that, I think. So, yeah.
Also about noticing, Michael.
Say that again.
So some of this stuff is already there. If I look around my island, Douglas Corporation, which is a local council, has quinces in one park and pears in one and apples in another, and they hang over the outside of the park and fall onto both the path and the street, and they just get driven over, and it breaks my heart. Is that the same in the UK?
Yeah, there is. Well, yes. I mean, there is. We have. Let me give you some statistics from last year, or from how we are. We have 260 gardens offering us their fruit trees, and we know of 157 other trees where maybe through neighbours where we don't have a direct contact. So about 400 trees. So yeah, I mean there is, and I think we're scratching the surface in getting 3 tons of fruits. I mean, I did a calculation that in London there's 12,000 tons of fruit around.
And just so I'm understanding you correctly, because I can get a bit confused about these things, you're not talking about foraging, although some of it might look like foraging if it's like here in the Isle of Man, the golf course has got a load of cherry trees. But you are looking at private and public places where there are fruit trees with abundance that's not getting used, but not like people's homes. Can you just tell me what falls into your orbit?
Yeah. So 90% of it is private gardens.
Okay. Okay.
Mixed with back gardens and front gardens, but mostly back gardens. About 90% is people's back gardens where the fruit would just be falling. I mean, we're not interested if somebody's using their fruit, if somebody's making good use of the fruit, then we're not interested. We're only interested where it would otherwise go to waste. So yeah, but there are the occasional park or car park or street tree on the pavement that we harvest as well. The street trees are good fun because they're theatre. You know, people can't go by. What on earth is happening with this great big blue tarpaulin and fruit falling? So cars will give people apples through car windows as they stop and have a chat. But it's almost all back gardens where people can't reach that high up. As Barbara said, these are generally trees that are too high for people to reach into.
If we were discussing these things with, let's say, Douglas City Council, we're really proud because we only became a city last year. We're so tiny in the Isle of Man. If we were to discuss this and the parks and gardens that their folk look after, are there motivations we could give them to make them want to do more of this? Are there numbers around money, around community stability, around the environment? It might be too early to say these things. I suspect that they will be positive, but I'm just wondering whether you've got any anything we can present to them at the moment.
Yeah, I think all those things are good arguments, and many councils now are interested in sustainability, in food poverty, in community, and all those things. Not all councils, but looking at your face, you don't seem. So all of those things. I mean, I think it varies. My experience of councils is it varies hugely who you talk to, and they can be risk averse. If you hit someone who's risk averse, then it's very difficult. If you hit somebody who's enthusiastic and enables it's great. So it's worth trying and then seeing how far you get. But we never have personally. We've not, for this project, we've not asked permission. We've just, as I said at the beginning, we've just done it. And if anybody was to challenge us or not to be happy about it, we would, fine, we're sorry. This food is going to food banks. So that's how I would do it personally, just because of the bureaucracy and the risk averseness of councils. But it's good to create links. I mean, the councils have, funded our work, and we definitely have allies in the councils and our local councils of people who want to do this.
I was going to ask
absolutely
about
love your
that.
response there, and
sorry, Kat.
Sorry, Barbara. Is it okay if I bail in? So, I love what you said. I am completely in alignment with it. I think that adherence to insurance and health and safety and all of those other compliance things are important, because when they don't matter, they don't matter at all, and when they do matter, they really, really, really matter, and it's a bit too late to try and fix them. So I think that it's important to try and set up these structures in the infrastructure that we've got, whether we like it or not. And that we keep encouraging people who are what's the word I'm looking for? So I worked with a chap at our homeless shelter who would say, we do risky things with risky people. And you assess everything before you do it. And you maybe do a risk assessment. But if it's a bit leery, that risk assessment, it doesn't mean you say no. It means you say, maybe, we'll go ahead, but we'll keep an eye on it. And this is huge in the world we're in today. So many things that would be so much beneficial to so many people do not happen because we're scared. Barbara, I'm going to let you jump in because I think I'm talking too much. I just think that there is a more Christian way of doing things. Barbara.
Okay.
Before Barbara, let me just say briefly respond to that before Barbara, which is, one of the reasons that we have the PIC leaders and we train the PIC leaders is about the risk and to keep, they are responsible for keeping things safe and looking out for problems. And part of the training for each PIC leader before they become a PIC leader is to point out to them things like when somebody's got a pole up in the air, A, they have to have two hands and not overstretched, but B, they need to make sure that if it slips, there's nobody ever underneath in the flight path of that pole. Should it come down, it will come down between people rather than on someone's head. So those are the sorts of things, along with a standard risk assessment, and the reason why we go and scout everywhere before we go in to reduce that risk.
Michael, I owe you an apology because I didn't make that clear. I did know that you had safety provisions in place, but I didn't acknowledge that enough. So
no apology needed. You just pointed out the need. And Barbara,
you partially answered what I was going to raise, actually, because I was curious about what support and encouragement you got from local authorities and councils, and also wondering if you have any church groups who are particularly involved in this. I know I'm in a more rural area, but churchyards often do have the odd fruit tree here and there. So I just wonder whether they were ever involved in what you're doing. Oh, and then also to say, if anybody else will be coming to an end, so if anybody else has got a question or something they want to say, please put your hand up.
I can see there's a note that
so
Della has been trying to speak.
Yeah.
For a while.
Della, come on.
Sorry, I just can't see where the help hand is, to put your hand up on my bar at the bottom. But anyway, I did want to ask, did you have, a couple of questions about the practicalities and risks. Do you ever use ladders for shaking the tree? Does anybody ever go up a ladder to shake a tree? And is there a recommended one that you need to put in a risk assessment that would be more suitable to anybody?
That is such a great question.
And
such a practical one.
On that, we occasionally do. We try and stay on the ground, and with this pole that gets to 6 meters, 90% of the time we stay on the ground, and we prefer it. Our insurance covers us up to 2.5 meters, so it's pretty limited in terms of 3 meters, I think. So it's pretty limited how far we can climb anyway. So what we do, if the tree owner has a ladder there, then sometimes we use it. We have never, I don't think we've ever transported a ladder. It's just too much hassle to start transporting ladders. So that's
thank you, Michael. And second question is to do with the tarpaulin. Tarpaulin is lovely. I know that I always try and find a shortcut if it's financially better. Heavy duty plastic, would that be equally as good as heavy duty clear plastic, or do you have special handles that people have got to hold on the tarpaulin like you would with the parachute thing?
Heavy duty plastic would do, because that's what tarpaulin is. But tarpaulin, the advantage, it has these steel eyelets, metal eyelets, so we tie rope to a couple of corners. So say a couple of people don't turn up or we don't have enough people, you could have two people, you tie two of the corners to a tree or a fence. It's more flexible.
Okay, thank you. They're my questions.
The other thing we have used is scaffolding. What you get this plastic on scaffolding, and we've actually repurposed that once. Let me answer Barbara's question about churches. I don't think we've ever harvested with a church, but we have with a local synagogue around here, and I really liked that. My sense was that members were interacting in a way that they don't normally. Maybe in other settings they would obviously be talking, be over food or over drink or in a meeting, but they were getting to know each other in a practical action that they didn't normally do. And I thought that had potential. So I do think, from seeing that, from observing that, and from knowing how strong faith communities all over the country are and for action, I do think there's a lot of potential for this. If we got this idea into faith groups, whether it could spread, given that a lot of congregants are going to have trees and they could, help each other harvest their own trees just within they wouldn't even have to look for trees within the wider community if they didn't want to or need to. Karen.
Hi, yeah, just on that theme, my contribution is fairly humble, but what I have done in my church quite successfully is when I've got loads of apples, I have a peeling party. And instead of having a coffee morning, I invite three women round, or could be men, but it's usually women, and we'd all sit round my kitchen table, just peeling and stewing and putting into individual packets, plastic bags, sealing, and then freezing. And if it fits a sort of normal portion, we can then take it to church and give it to sort of older people, maybe, or busy mothers and families who just haven't got the time for that sort of thing. And I think it's a good first step to um, raising awareness in a local church. And it's using the stuff that otherwise would go to waste. So it's a bit more involved, but it works on several levels. The peeling party to start with, and then helping the older people or the busy mothers in the community. So I think that's kind of worth sharing.
Yep, no, that's great. It's using the fruit. We need to find. We've got all this fruit. We need to find a use, and if we can add value to it and store it, freeze it, or jam it, or chutney it, then you're extending. It's not just this 6 to 8 weeks when there's a glut and everybody might get fed up with it, but you can use it, spread it out through the rest of the year.
And also in my own community, so we try to use some of these things at our warm spaces, which is a Thursday 10 till 2 thing where there's tea and biscuits and soup and blah blah blah. But we've been talking about the ability to help people make their own food, because many of our warm spaces attendees they're not allowed even a microwave or a kettle in their rooms, so it's very difficult for them. But we could help them learn how to make produce or meals out of soup making ingredients, but also the fruit and other produce that you're talking about, Michael. Oh, apple jam, all those sorts of things. So there's huge capacity there potentially.
Yep, no, there's lots of things that you can do with this fruit. I'm open to more questions, but before we end, this is the first time I've ever done a Zoom like this. So I'd appreciate any feedback on, just any reaction, whether you think it sounds daunting, whether you're inspired, whether you're not sure, or just any feedback on when I do this again, because I'm going to do it again next Wednesday, how I might change it.
Right. Anybody want to come in with any suggestions? I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it, Michael, because I'm pretty interested in apples and fruit and so forth anyway. So come on.
Depending on the audience, I'd love to hear about
let's
how
hear from one or
you
two of the
can...
others. Anybody else got
sorry.
anything to say? Yeah. Any suggestions?
I'm very new to all of this concept. Although my aunts, grandmothers made jams, I haven't got a clue really. And I hear that you say, Michael, that you send yours off to make your jam with a company or a person. I would love to know that contact. If that could be posted up. I'm in London, not so far away from you. And I'm hoping to do something in September, August, September in Ealing. So not so far.
Okay, so just on that, I mean, the restaurant is in Kensal, but it's one that we've just have a relationship with it. So they just do it for us as a local relationship. So, but you might if you're lucky, you'll find somebody in Ealing. There used to be a group in Ealing, actually, 12 years ago. There was a group in West Ealing, and I have had a little bit of interest from Ealing. So
when you say a group, do you mean a pick up the fruit group or a different sort of group?
Yeah, a fruit harvesting group. There used to be an Ealing fruit harvesting group, or West Ealing fruit harvesting group. So, and I have had, because there's 29 people in London have expressed interest so far in starting a group. So, Dina, if you wanted to be in touch with them, just to be in touch with no commitment, I could do that. If you put your email in the chat or do it through Cat or something to get it to me, I can keep in touch with you.
That'd be great. Thank you. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Any other feedback?
Actually, best to email me, only because I'm not the owner of the chat. So
okay.
Yeah. Diana? Dan? Diane, you got your hand up. Do you want to unmute?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Hi there. I run a small charity of my own. It's called All Christians Gather. I work with my church, and I'm able to get surplus food that is delivered from FareShare, and I take that to a community centre and deliver it there. And I would be interested in the fruit, but I think for the first stage, I'd be interested in the surplus fruit, but not actually harvesting it. Would that be something? Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, any fruit harvesting group needs the distribution points. Without that, we wouldn't harvest it, because I mean, literally, if we don't have anywhere to send it to, we don't do it, because there's no point. It would just go to waste. So, but obviously there would need to be a group in your area. So you could encourage, you could spread the idea in your local area and see if anybody picks it up. I didn't catch where you are, if you said it. Where are you in the country?
I'm in London.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so again, if you drop in the chat where you are, then if there's somebody starting a group in London, I could connect you with them. There aren't many groups in London. I mean, there's about 30 fruit harvesting groups in the country at the moment, and about 4 or 5 in London, one of which is connected to a food bank.
Right.
So
Which
glad to
food
hear from
bank
you.
is
Is
that?
it Diane? Diane that's speaking to us?
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry that we can't be immediately the answer to your question, but would you be kind enough to maybe drop me a line on email, catjenkins@greenchristian.org.uk, which is in the invite to this event, and we'll try and find you contacts with people who I think would be very helpful for and to you. But
I'll try. I can't promise, because most of London has nothing. I'm hoping that with this work I'm doing in London this summer, there will be 20 new groups in London, but they are all, if they're all sort
Wow.
of 2 miles by 2 miles, there's still going to be lots of gaps, but let's
That is a
see.
huge ambition and wonderful. And just look at that, people. We've listened to this talk this evening, but here is this ambition to make good food available within certain areas. Thank you.
I'm sure this idea has huge potential, not just all over the country, but all over the world.
Indeed.
Yes, thank you so much, Michael. That was really inspirational, and what you're doing is such a practical thing, a simple thing, but it's just such a very worthwhile thing to spread and try and get
A
more
happy thing as well, actually.
Yes, all kinds of goods from it.
Yeah, but
So thank you so much.
it is enjoyable. It is something people, you're in the summer in someone's garden doing this. It is enjoyable. And although I've talked about London, my hope is that next year, having done it in London this year, next year we'll go more national. So thank you for your interest.
Oh, thank you for your inspiration. And thank you everybody for being here.